The Democratic debate, of course, landed in South Carolina tonight. And of course, if you haven't heard, South Carolina has black voters.
Yes.
If you didn't hear, then the candidates definitely dove into that topic tonight to make sure they appeal to the black voters that, of course, Vice President Biden appears to have a stranglehold on until the latest polls that have come out. Pete Buttigieg has tried to go ahead and recoup his gravitas with the black voter tonight, and we'll check out this one clip to see how he pulled that off.
You've certainly had your issues with the black community as well. Do you think the New York City's implementation of stop and frisk was racist?
Yes, in effect it was, because it was about profiling people based on their race. And the mayor even said that they disproportionately stopped white people too often and minorities too little. And I'm not here to score points. I come at this with a great deal of humility because we have had a lot of issues, especially when it comes to racial justice and policing in my own community. And I come to this with some humility because I'm conscious of the fact that there's 7 white people on this stage talking about racial justice. None of us have the experience, the lived experience of, for example, walking down the street or in a mall and feeling eyes on us, regarding us as dangerous without knowing the first thing about us just because of the color of our skin. None of us have the experience that black women have had that drives that maternal mortality gap that we are all rightly horrified by, of going into a doctor and being less likely to have your description of being in pain believed because of your race. Since we don't have the experience, the next best thing we can do is actually listen to those who do.
We actually have to listen to those who do. Pete Buttigieg did have a few moments to do so when he was back in South Bend, and many black constituents came and confronted him about his policies back at home. And I remember, I may paraphrase the line, but he said something like, "I'm not gonna want your vote."
That's right, he did, that's right.
So if you listen to the constituents who tell you what the problems are with the way that you've governed, or you've been a mayor, then you should probably do something afterwards. This is the epitome of Pete Buttigieg. So he'll say, this is what we have to do. This needs to be done, that needs to be done. But he doesn't connect himself to do those things. He doesn't talk about an approach to get those things carried out, because he doesn't care.
Yeah, he's learned how to speak about it. It's almost like he Googled it and it's like, oh, you're supposed to say lived experience. I will say lived experience. I don't have the lived experience. Did I do that right, everybody? I rehearsed it at home. We know you did, Pete. We know you did. And then I'm gonna tell you things that make me seem like I'm empathetic. But to Jayar's point, did you listen to any of those folks back in South Bend? The overwhelming opinion of African Americans in South Bend is you didn't. And Black Lives Matter from South Bend followed him around the country saying, for God's sake, will you listen to us? And on several occasions, a mom whose son had been hanged, they called it a suicide. She was not at all sure that it was a suicide. Asked Buttigieg to look into it when he was mayor. He said, I'll get back to you, never got back to her. That's a pattern that happened with several different African-American constituents. Don't vote for me, I'll get back to you. Kidding, I won't get back to you. He listened to the black police chief and immediately demoted him. He listened to the black fire chief and immediately fired him. So that's not what I call effectively listening to their lived experience. Their lived experience in South Bend is you firing them.
Yeah, he listened and then he went the other way. Another really frustrating moment for me at this debate with just, I think, the worst moderators of the entire election cycle was teeing up Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar, 2 candidates who have a questionable history when it comes to racial justice in South Bend, as we just talked about, and in Amy Klobuchar's state of Minnesota when she was an attorney there, when she was a prosecutor there. They were the ones who were asked about Mike Bloomberg's record, and they both went after it and didn't address their own issues at all. It allowed them to deflect, and the moderators never asked them about their Amy Klobuchar's tough on crime stances, about the very things we just talked about with Pete Buttigieg and his terrible record with policing in South Bend. Why do that? That didn't make any sense, and it allowed them to contrast themselves with an even more racist and terrible guy.
Yeah, and it lets Bloomberg off the hook because Buttigieg and Klobuchar are gonna wanna soft pedal that issue.
Exactly.
They're gonna wanna pander with phrases they Googled online, but not attack Bloomberg too hard because they're vulnerable on that issue. So not only does it help Bloomberg and Klobuchar appear to care about that issue more than Bloomberg does, but it also protects Bloomberg from actual legitimate significant criticism. If you had asked Elizabeth Warren about Bloomberg's record, you would have gotten a very different answer.
And she kind of disappeared in the second half of the debate. She just kind of bowed out from all of the squabbling, which was, I felt for her, I felt for Bernie, but it was a mistake because she just kind of faded into the wallpaper a little bit.
Hey, look, I even felt bad for Joe Biden because everybody was over talking and he wasn't. But then he hurts himself by going, now I ran out of time. And then now I'm not gonna get to finish my sentence. Joe, instead of saying all that, finish your sentence.
He did it like 4 times.
That's right.
So now that we got Pete Buttigieg on the record and about his feelings about how to listen to black people, I believe he's actually trying to catch up with Joe Biden because Joe Biden's been pushing the black vote, I think right after Iowa, or maybe even during Iowa when he saw it wasn't going that well. So he was looking forward to this contest already. But outside of that, we've heard Biden say it, but Tom Steyer actually found a way to call him out on it. Let's check that out.
Mr. Mayor, you're allowed to respond.
I bought stock in a prison company thinking they'd do a better job, and I investigated and I sold it.
Okay.
Stop.
You knew when you bought it they'd done that.
I get to answer this question. And in fact, since then, I've worked to end the use of private prisons in my home state, and we've ended it. I've started a bank to support black ownership of businesses, women ownership of businesses, and Latino owners of businesses, because this financial service industry is prejudiced. I have worked tirelessly on this, and you know I'm right. You wrote the crime bill.
Where we come from, that's called Tommy Come Lately. There are other people here.
Put hundreds of thousands of young black and Latino
Not true.
men in prison.
Okay. Let me say something.
Thank you.
There's something going on here.
Mr. Steyer.
I have worked for racial justice completely, and that is an absolute
Mr.
unfair
Steyer.
statement.
Just a bit of the nature of that back and forth. I'm sorry, honestly, the entire debate kind of felt like that as they were going back and forth. But I mean, there was a lot of factual statements put out there, at least by Steyer, from what he's done. And we know Biden has been riding, I mean, let's keep it real, a bit of the coattails from when he was vice president to make sure that he has that appeal going in as well. I guess they both had some stinging fire at each other, but really, did we come up with any? Was there really one discernible fact where if they're trying to appeal to black voters, where they go, yeah, that guy came out on top there?
That was like the Klobuchar-Pete exchange from the last debate, where it was just frustrating to everyone, and I don't think either of them benefited from that kind of exchange. It seemed like a sideshow.
But obviously we're getting at why they did it. So important context, Biden and Steyer for a long time were in the top 3 in South Carolina. So Bernie Sanders is also in the top 3. The polls keep moving recently, so that's why I'm saying until recently, Steyer was number 2 for a while in South Carolina. So that was his big stand. Where I'm going to go to South Carolina, and he bought a lot of ads there. He Bloomberged South Carolina because he's also a billionaire. But to be fair to Tom Steyer, he does have a very good record on that. All the things that he was saying are true. Yes, Biden is right that he did invest in the private prisons. Do I know that Steyer divested from that quickly enough? No, I don't know the exact timing of when he got out of that business, etc. But I do know that Steyer has invested a lot in the grassroots, and not in a Bloombergian way of, I have bought all these mayors, I have bought all these Democrats, right? No, he actually put money into grassroots and empowered them. And that's part of the reason why he's doing well in South Carolina. And he said on stage at one point that he's the only one in favor of reparations that's on that stage. I think those are fair points. So obviously, look, I've endorsed Bernie Sanders, and it's easy for me to say, oh, Steyer is another billionaire trying to buy his way in. But he does make good points about corporate rule of the government. And in this case, he does have a good record on it. And obviously, South Carolina, I think the number is something along the lines of 2/3 of the Democratic voters in South Carolina are African American. That's why all of a sudden in this debate, everybody's like, I love black people. No, I love them more than you do, right? And they're smearing each other with, you once did something against black people.
Jerry Maguire stepped out on stage and he took over the whole thing when he said, I love black people. So I guess the way that you can really find out if there's an actual desire to do anything about this other than just saying you'll do something about it is to see what are the candidates gonna say after. What have they said before when they were in Iowa and when they were up in New Hampshire? So, I mean, I get it. There's more of a majority of voters that you're looking to appeal to there. But Are we all not listening to it? Did black folks in South Carolina not watch any of the first several debates since we started the primary process? Did they not watch the primaries? So then therefore they only pay attention once you come into town? It just seems like an odd thing to do, and it actually highlights how fake it can be if before you get here and after you leave here, you don't have anything else to say about it. And I gotta give Elizabeth Warren credit for this, because she's been doing it since before, honestly, the field really filled out. She was talking about the way expectant black mothers get treated in hospitals, and the disparity in the way that the way businesses go about, the way they hire and pay black women. So at least she's been on that, and I don't think anybody was listening when she was, because it wasn't South Carolina yet. So I think that's at least one point for her on actually embodying those feelings.
Well, it's another reason why we have to overhaul the whole system, and Iowa and New Hampshire just can't be first. It privileges white issues and deprivileges issues of immigration and criminal justice and issues that affect the black and brown community, because everyone is so heavily focused on those two states. And that's why Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar got out to 2 hot starts, because they only appeal to white people and they're not gonna do well for the rest of the contest, I think. So Buttigieg was trying desperately to appeal there because he knows that he needs to keep the momentum from his early wins up, because demographically he really doesn't have a shot going forward. So he needs to be aggressive and more aggressive.
Can I ask a question?
With that. Yeah.
Obviously you guys are different kind of thinkers, but maybe people have a perspective that I wouldn't have. So the third of Democratic white voters in South Carolina, when suddenly you come to the candidates come to your state, and you get completely ignored now, do you go, seems like they're kind of pandering to black folks? Or do you think, seems like they kind of don't like me? I'm not sure how you take it as being the majority and always getting the attention, and then suddenly not getting the attention. If you go, oh yeah, it's okay, it's fine, I understand, they're just faking. I'll take a pass on it. I don't really have anything I care much about.
Well, I got to kick this one over to Emma, because my background was Muslim. We always get ignored. In fact, when Bernie Sanders at the end of a debate said that the Palestinians are actually human beings, I was like, whoa, okay, that's like the most loved Muslims I've ever gotten at a debate.
Hated for that,
right? Let alone the fact that I'm agnostic. That might, I don't know if that's worse, etc. So they never talk about people.
And I can't assume that you would know, because like I said, it's a different kind of perspective.
So.
But has that happened?
Yeah.
Like you're not
I'm
from
Norwegian.
South Carolina.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Norway.
I can't even look. I'm from Jersey, right? Like it's diverse. I can't even imagine getting angry or feeling alienated by that kind of talk. In fact, I would think that it was encouraging.
Yeah, because it sounds like it's a lot of times the way Republicans or conservatives may describe anytime you focus on anyone else. Hey, what about us? Hey, the Christian straight white male. Then that's like we're being discriminated against because you stop paying attention to us for 1% of the time.
So to dive really into your question, and then I want to grade everyone on their score of how they have actually treated minorities, which is the first question they asked you. I was at an African American church in Lancaster this weekend, and so first of all, the pastor there said, no, actually the visiting scholar there said, look, when sometimes you will have white pastors at a black church, and people find that perfectly normal. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens from time to time, and everybody accepts it, and it's good. And very rarely they'll try a black pastor at a white church. And he said, that never works, okay? Because people are like, no, wait, we're used to being in charge. When we talk about diversity, like we mean diversity like where we're in charge of black people instead of just being in charge of white people, not you being in charge of us. So I'm sure that there is some element of that, right?
Right.
Now, in terms of the grading everybody, that's same visiting scholar who studied African American history, civil rights, etc., gave an impassioned speech about they always tell you to wait. You know me, I love that speech, right? They always tell you to wait. It's an inconvenient season. Don't fight for justice now, etc. He's like, no, the time is now. I'm running out of time. He's a little bit older. He's like, I'm running out of time. Time is now. So that's why the time is right for Bernie Sanders. I was like, oh yes.
Oh, this guy's your new best friend.
I know. And then everybody applauded. A woman behind me went, Jesus. Okay, like amen. Okay. So obviously Bernie's winning over African Americans. In fact, it's not just anecdotal. It's that the polling shows the majority of African Americans support Bernie Sanders. Now, remember the media last time around smeared him as no African Americans like Bernie Sanders. Based on any policy or anything? No, they don't know him yet, so they hate him. No, those are two different things. And if you remember at the beginning of this campaign, they actually said that a little bit about Pete Buttigieg, and I said, wait, they don't know his name yet, right? Later, we not only found out his name, but his record. Now he's earned your hate. That's okay, right? But name recognition is so important. So he's taking the lead, and they've seen his record. He fought for civil rights all the way back in the 1960s. We've talked a lot about that. So he has a really great record on that. I agree with you, Jayar. Elizabeth Warren has a really great record, especially on economic issues and fighting for African Americans. As I said earlier, I think Steyer has an excellent record with African Americans in empowering people, whether it's business or grassroots. The other four are a debacle. Okay, so Klobuchar is the best of the bad lot, but it's a Hobson's choice over there. No good choices.
She sentenced that 16-year-old to life and wouldn't, and even the victim's parents say that he didn't do it, and his co-defendant said he wasn't even there, and she wouldn't relent.
That's part of the tough on crime.
Yep.
Idea. Don't worry, I'll be tough on crime / African Americans. And so that's Klobuchar. That's bad. Okay. But then you move to Biden. Biden is worse. Biden was proud to work with Strom Thurmond, who was a segregationist, but also on issues where they were doing segregation. He was against busing, right? The crime bill imprisoned millions of African Americans. It was a disaster, and the list goes on and on. Obama didn't pick Biden because he had a great record with African Americans. He picked him because he had a great record with white people, okay? But he's not last. Buttigieg's record in South Bend is a disaster. TYT.com. Go read the stories Jonathan Larson wrote with all firsthand sources: the black police chief, the black fire chief, the black mothers, the black citizens, you name it. There's a story that Jonathan broke about how his donors, the cops on tapes joke around about white people are gonna be back in charge. They say, yeah, we talked to Buttigieg's donors, he's gonna get rid of the black police chief. But Jesus, even as terrible as Buttigieg's record is, Bloomberg comes in last. Bloomberg's even worse than him, bragging about how he targeted young blacks and Latinos and how he purposely let white people go, even though white people on stop and frisk had guns on them at a greater rate than blacks and Latinos, even though they almost never found anything criminal when they stopped blacks and Latinos. And even though, and to me, the worst part, I'm never gonna let it go, was Bloomberg said, well, if black and Latino guys didn't have guns on them, that just means they had it at home. In other words, in Bloomberg's head, every black and Latino guy is guilty, no matter whether you have evidence of it or not. That's the definition of racism. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.